Manu Kaʻiama is a certified public accountant licensed to practice in the state of Hawaii. She is the owner of two businesses, Kaipiha LLC and Upena Network LLC. Manu also currently serves as managing director of Oihana segment of the Noel Grant, $1.8 million of federal Department of Education funds. She is a professor at the Schindler College of Business at UH Manoa and teaches financial and auditing subjects and serves as a part-time professor at Kamakakuo Kalani Center for Hawaiian Studies, teaching Hawaiian economies. Manu is past executive director and principal investigator of an $11 million grant for the Federal Department of Education for programs for Native Hawaiian Haumana. She is also a cultural practitioner and participant of Papaku Makavalu for over 10 years. Manu, before you begin, I'm going to ask that you pick a number between 1 and 195. This is going to be for a $50 raffle, which I'll name the winner of that $50 gift certificate after your presentation. So can you just on top of your head pick a number from 1 to 195?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, aloha. Okay, I picked 28.
28. Okay, thank you, Manu. You may go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, I'm waiting for Lynn to put my PowerPoint up. There we go. And now you can delete the sidebar so I can try and get a little more. Is that working out for you guys? Oh, you just went back. There we go. How's that working? Good? Okay, so just so you know, I'm not able to see the chat because on my screen it's completely my PowerPoint. So you may be thinking you're asking me questions or you're telling me stuff, but I am not getting them. So I think the powers that be know this. All right, so I'll get started. Mahalo Umi for that really informative talk, and Kalekoa, who's always so inspiring. Aloha mai ka ko. O wau ka manunani o Hawai'i Kaʻiama, o oahu kuʻu kupuni, o ua mau keʻea o ka ʻaina I ka pono ma loko kuʻu na au. I am really honored to be here. And I want to say mahalo to Kale Gumapak for holding this important celebration of La Kuʻokoʻa and all the kokua that he has received and we have received in this endeavor, especially to Lynn Cox. Aloha, Lynn, who likes to be managing behind the scenes, but I wanted to do a shout out for her for excellent help in the technology department. Okay, so thank you for that introduction. I always crack up when people say I'm a certified public accountant because then all of a sudden everyone falls asleep. So don't fall asleep because I'm really not that. That's a part-time day job. And I do so much more than accounting. But I do have to also let you know that I'm not an economist. So it's kind of interesting to be talking about Hawaiian Kingdom economies, but I will try my best. All right, so let's see. I hope this is moving forward. Yes, it is. So what is the economic future of the Hawaiian Kingdom and the impact on its subjects? And that was the assignment given to me by Kale. And yes, we be naive if anyone thought that this question could be answered in 45 minutes, but nonetheless, this question makes me happy. It gives me hope, okay? My understanding of deoccupation, which is always a growing mana'o as I learn more and more, but my understanding includes that we're to continue our best that we can create the same state that our country was in before the illegal occupation. Unfortunately, America did not follow these laws and did not continue to uphold our kingdom's constitution, as we all know. I doubt actually that they would have enacted the correct and appropriate constitution, which would have been in 1864. But regardless, the prolonged occupation has made this complicated at best. Okay, it would be quite a task to go back and replant sugar, pineapple, and even the little spatterings of rice that we would see all over the islands to fulfill this doctrine. And it would be deemed unreasonable at best, especially since our efforts should be spent on activities that will bring not only wealth to the kingdom, but also health and Pono land stewardship. I do, however, believe that a large part of our economy, of the recovery of our economy will be in agriculture, as we should attempt to be self-sufficient with regards to food. You know, we're talking about food sustainability now, finally. And we have been for years, it's just now people are listening. And we do also need to embrace food diversity. I also think we'll explore continued and increasing exporting of some of these products, but sugar, no way. For example, I would suggest something more healthy like kalo or taro for those of you who do not speak Hawaiian, but I will be rattling off in some things in Hawaiian, so e kalamai, excuse me. I won't always be remembering to translate, but you'll get this, you'll get it, yeah. I do believe we could replace all white rice in our public school systems with poi. I think that that would be a great economic driver, would help the farmers, also contribute to self-sustainability and food sustainability, and also good health. I mean, poi is so much better than white rice. And so I guess this is how it works. We think of ideas and we vet them. We can view this over 100 years of illegal occupation as actually an opportunity to have a do-over. I mean, this might be a fabulous time in our history from the kingdom's perspective. I cannot help but really feel positive about all of this. We've been frustrated and we felt the pain, and now we're looking forward. As Umi says, let's look towards the future. So what is the economic future of the Hawaiian Kingdom and its impact on its subjects? I answer in this way. Well, what do you want it to be? Okay. What do we want it to be? Like I said earlier, you know, I'm not an economist, but I teach this class for years now at UH Manoa called Hawai'i and Indigenous Economies. And no, I did not choose the term indigenous. That was put upon me. That's a whole nother story. But what I do begin with in class is I begin talking about Hawaiians not being indigenous. That tends to be kind of a hard pill to swallow for many of them because they've already taken many classes where they've been called indigenous and they've drank the Kool-Aid and they want to identify with their Aboriginal roots. Of course, that's understandable. That's wonderful. But I try to encourage them to identify also with their rich history as a part of a progressive nation state, too. You know, I spend a lot of time in class informing them that they are Aboriginal. They're native, but they're not indigenous because of the United Nations definition of indigeneity. And they learn many for the first time what it really means that Hawaii was recognized as an independent country, and that we do not come from, as other indigenous people do, a non-self-governing territory, but actually from a kingdom. So this is basically my first step in teaching them to think outside the box. It takes a few weeks for them to embrace the type of thinking I want them to participate in for the remaining of the class. So I am trying to basically deprogram them. Only if I succeed in this will they be able to think of economic ideas for the future of the Hawaiian Kingdom. Otherwise, their minds become cluttered with American law and pre-programmed ideas of what Hawaii can and cannot do. Thoughts like we can never survive without tourism is one of the hardest mantras for me to break. And that's, of course, a result of billions of dollars spent by the tourist industry to indoctrinate all of us. Okay, so if you're sitting there thinking America will never leave and Hawaii will never be independent again, then I suggest you replace that, with these thoughts. America will leave Hawaii. America will actually assist Hawaii to take its rightful place amongst all nation states. Hawaii will be independent once again. It's really important for us to speak that way, to put that intention into the universe. So again, I encourage all of you to do that. I think that we should be able to expect justice, imagine justice, believe in justice. Our thoughts should always be positive. I believe that America will deoccupy Hawaii. The new consciousness, for example, of the global world is addressing these horrific wrongs brought about by antiquated ideas of manifest destiny, white entitlement, and imperialism. And I believe that there will come a time, and it may already be here, where, for whatever reason, perhaps to prove to the world that they, America, really are a great country, as evidenced by their constitution, they're going to have to make a grand gesture to the rest of the world, and the deoccupation of Hawaii will be it. So when people say, hey, we're not ready for our kingdom, I say, I want it yesterday. And that's always been my mantra for 20 years now. I know some of you now agree. Yay. Okay, so today we're going to dream our dreams. This is a perfect time to do so. In my class, we'll study numerous Hawaiian values and how our customary practices emulated these values. Okay, students then choose one or two values to develop an economic engine. Sustainable, we hope in Hawaii Pai'aina, they have to prove it. That encompasses the value or values they chose. And I have on the screen there just a handful of tons of ideas that we've developed and or considered. So just chose a few of them. Diversity, of course, is considered a must for an island nation. So you can see there, you're probably already reading it, sustainable agriculture. So now we'll flip the script with 80% grown here, maybe 20% imported. And we'd like to even bring down that 20%. Organic and non-GMO markets, very hot right now. Also exportable, good for the island, good for our health. Revival of local i'a on all islands. So local i'a are fish farms. That technology could also be exportable. Develop technology and expertise in many areas. There I list one. In cleaning military toxins, this is important for just the health of the planet. This could also be exportable. And exportable expertise. Having Hawaii become a well-renowned medical center or place for people to come. Not necessarily when they're sick, but other types of ailments, limb regeneration, things like that. Offshore banking, controlled gambling. Gambling is always something that we speak of in class and have some really great debates. And of course, the technology industry. And so you might be thinking, well, how are we going to do that, without money? And money actually shouldn't be a problem. I believe Keanu and others have calculated reparations that we will receive from America. And as my husband pointed out yesterday when we were speaking about this, other countries too that have broken their treaties with us may be in that same boat. The next question is often, well, how will we be able to accomplish this? Well, I will not talk about a national bank or currency, though it would be a large component of our economic landscape, as we do have an expert discussing financing later in the day. So mahalo, I was able to cut some of those slides out. But government financing initially will be an important aspect of our recovery. So now at about this time, people start allowing their minds to doubt because of a lifetime, right, of indoctrination. How are we going to ever be able to do this? So I stick this slide in to say to you, well, how did they do it, right? Take a deep breath and relax. And those words that are large say mai poina, which means don't forget, do not forget. How'd these guys do it? You know, how'd they take and basically overthrow our queen? Okay. Well, I'll tell you how, with the assistance of the American military, which is required in an orderly deoccupation. So the American military will be there as required by law, and they are going to assist us. Now, if you take a look at this, committee of safety, okay, it's actually made up of 6 Hawaiian citizens. Okay, they were either born on the soil or they were naturalized. Okay, 6 of them. Then there are 5 Americans. There's 1 Englishman and 1 German. Now, these are ordinary guys, okay? Maybe they're extraordinary in their greed because they were greedy capitalist businessmen. 6 of them, right, who were actually citizens of the nation, were ready to commit treason against their own country to make more money. That's who they were. There were 4 lawyers. 3 of them came from missionary descendants. There was a merchant, a sugar investor, a coppersmith, a plumbing and household businessman, agriculture investor, insurance agent, a well driller / cattleman, a businessman who provided machinery and supplies for sugar and later got into shipping. One of them did transportation, just an ordinary bunch of businessmen with a desire for money so great that they would do the unthinkable for the dollar. So what I did was I took a look, to look at some island countries, okay? And I just thought, let's take a look at other island nations and what their economies consist of. And so if you take a look at slide 11, you'll see some of the countries. Now this, I did it by gross domestic product, which is basically the total monetary or market value of all the finished goods and services produced within a country. And you look, the island nation that's at the top is Iceland. So it's really interesting, okay? And if we were to go through, I'm in the interest of time, okay, but we can go through a few, I think. If you look at Iceland, so I did, and they used to rely heavily on fishing. However, now they've diversified their economy. They do have some investments in tourism, financial services, and natural resources. If we look at Ireland, okay, what do they do? Okay, well, they've attracted corporations and big tech companies by allowing a business-friendly tax policy environment, okay, and supporting that. Next to Singapore, they have historically benefited for being a hub for trade, and they also have attracted very wealthy people to live there. Hong Kong, again, central for trade in Asia. A lot of that has to do with their being a colony of the British Empire, but they're continuing to grow and diversify. United Kingdom, they have, of course, their fame and their independence, if you want to call it that, right? Because they are one island of Great Britain, but they are listed as one of the wealthiest nations, okay, because of their long established trade routes. So I'm more interested in looking, what are they doing, right? That's what I'm looking for. New Zealand, very interesting. They are a hub for the world's technology elite. A lot of Silicon Valley investors are moving there. They also do not have the kind of regulations that businesses have to satisfy when doing business in the United States. Japan, okay, great for culture, design, auto manufacturing, and most importantly, technology. The Bahamas, they of course attract tourists, but they also have tax laws that have deemed them as a tax haven. Malta, they attract wealthy foreigners to this Mediterranean island by giving out a convenient passport. This is kind of interesting. As an independent nation, we want to look into our passport and just what kind of power we can get from having a passport. They are a member of the European Union, so the passport's attractive to outsiders, and because they can go ahead and they can use it. But also, there is a promise. I don't know if this is showing up on your screen, but I'm take it off my screen. It's a promise. Let's see, as a member. Okay, so their passport. Sorry, I lost my thought there. Their passport is attractive to outsiders. Likewise, it's a promise not to tax nationals on income or wealth abroad, right, earned abroad, and it makes that passport very ideal choice if you're rich. Cyprus, okay, another island nation that's listed. All right. Again, people are interested in their passport, and they have attracted a number of wealthy foreigners to invest in their island in order to get their passport. Bahrain, much of this wealth, of course, is coming from oil. They're located in the Persian Gulf, okay, but they are trying to actually liberalize their economy, and they are looking into tourism and trade. Okay, they also have a very liberal nightlife and more tolerant legal system. I don't know if we want to do that. Taiwan, okay, long-standing industrial base, and they are a major hub for electronic exports. Barbados, okay, they have a thriving tourism industry, and they are also have a reputation of a tax haven. Okay, St. Kitts and Nevis, they also are beautiful islands, and they have a tourist industry too. They do actually have a valuable passport, which allows visa-free access to 128 countries. So they work that out. And with 128 countries, the catch, however, is you have to invest in the country before you are able to call yourself a citizen. So they have to pay to be a citizen. Antigua and Barbuda, also tourism, but also have the status of an offshore tax haven for Western industrialists. So nobody is just in tourism. Yeah, Trinidad and Tobago, Tobago, whichever you say. These are two islands also in the Caribbean. Um, they also have tourism. They have a wealth of natural resources such as oil, gas, and they're a major shipping point, okay, to other areas in the Caribbean. Um, and they do some drugs sometimes. I won't get into that. Um, uh, Seychelles, right there, is in Africa. Um, um, it's also one of the wealthiest nations in Africa. It owns some of the economic success to a thriving tourism industry, uh, to the world's elite, and it's also a haven for offshore banking. Um, it's been labeled, a haven for tax dodgers. Okay, so I went and I looked through that, and I kind of summarized uh, the different types of activities that economic activities that they were participating in. So we have financial services, offshore banking, business-friendly laws and tax policies, welcoming, right, business climate. They have natural resources, oil and gas. Um, they are centers for trade. They have technology and innovation, design, manufacturing, industrial, electronics, passport portability, and tourism. Okay, so knowing this, let's examine one or two of our current economic drivers in Hawaii to see how well it would do in the kingdom. And so first, we're going to look at the new old king, right? Sugar used to be king, but of course, the new old king, because it's been around for a while, is sugar. I mean, it's tourism. See what happens when I'm looking at my cell phone instead of concentrating? Oh, wait. I'm just looking to check the time. I want to make sure I don't go over. So here's tourism. Don't you love it? Yeah. There's Leahi in the background. On the left side of all those buildings, you might be able to see the Pink Palace down there at the corner. And there's our typical tourist, I suppose. So should the Hawaiian Kingdom continue with tourism? Looks like a few of the richest island nations do. They have some form of tourism, a few of them, and it's been a top economic driver for so long, but we must ask the question specific to Hawaii. Who has really benefited from its existence here? Well, sure, the tourists, right? There really was a not so grand celebration when Hawaii surpassed the 10 million visitors mark, with a few letters to the editor discussing that, hey, it's too much. When will our leaders, quote unquote, do something about this? And then, not long after the pandemic struck, clearing the beaches, roadways, shopping malls, and citizens really began to speak out about how, oh my gosh, it's nicer without them. Tourist industry tried their best to hush the sentiment with scare tactics, right? The governor, about jobs, economy, employment. And though many, many of us, our own people, have suffered, still many, many of us were happy about no tourists and even sad to see them all coming back so soon. So one thing the pandemic did was clearly demonstrated that jobs that were more sustainable versus those that were not should be those that we should be encouraging our next generation, right, to go into. And even this generation to switch to, right? Knowing this, the Hawaiian Kingdom, should invest in economic enterprises that are needed and not so easily affected by a disaster, by climate change, etc., uncontrollable occurrences. Resources should be redirected to these areas as our population should be considering going back to school, right? To develop new skills in areas not so badly affected. Our kingdom will continue its original ideal of being an educated nation. So that's important. This is a picture of the beach at Waikiki when we were not allowed to gather during the pandemic. You know, it's quite beautiful. Except for maybe those buildings in the background, it's remarkable. Much of the Aina, all over the islands, but especially on Oahu, has been able to heal a little bit. Okay, so yes, tourism. Okay, so my phone is dinging. This is not my phone. Okay, this is Dexter's phone. So I will not look at it. But if you're trying to get in touch with him, he's nowhere near me. So sorry. Okay, so let's look at this. All right, tourism provides money, okay, to the government through the collection of taxes, tourist taxes, GE taxes charged on everything they pay for, the tourists pay for. Also, for those who work in the industry, right? They get a paycheck. And they earn their money that way. The construction industry builds hotels. I don't know how much longer they can keep building hotels. I think they're going to be looking on the outer islands now. So beware. I shouldn't say outer islands, Kalamai. It's because I'm here situated on Oahu, but our neighboring islands. So beware, and I know you are. Okay, let's see. Sorry, but somebody is just walking up to my door, so I'm not sure who it is. That's the interesting thing about doing this technology, yeah. You gotta love it. Okay. That's it. So anyways, hotels, you know, construction industry, okay, one and the same, right? Also helps keep people employed, hotel workers, taxi cab drivers, tour buses, restaurants, entertainment. So hey, what's not to love? Well, of course, the pandemic showed that tourism can't really be the star anymore. It actually utilizes tons of workers at low level paying jobs. So many that the industry has to go to other countries to get people to come and work here, okay, to change sheets, right, to do dishes. Not utilizing our own workforce, okay, exacerbates, right, all of the problems we currently have. Most hotels are owned by huge conglomerates that are home based somewhere else. In other words, the real money goes elsewhere. When you think of our current population, right, about 1.5 million, but think we host 10 million a year, it's easy to see the harm. Pollution, waste, infrastructure deterioration, no affordable housing, road congestion, depletion of our natural resources. Excuse me. For example, right, the sacrifice we, the local population, has had to make to please the tourist is really no longer acceptable, right? There's no room for us, right, at our favorite surf spot or hiking spots, which used to be no one knew about. Now everyone knows about, right? A lack of understanding uh, and respect for the variety of cultures that live and work here. Higher prices as a result of, you know, more affluent people being willing to pay the higher price. And it trickles down to our goods, our food, our clothes, right? Especially our housing. Lack of affordable housing, you know, a visitor comes, they see, they like, they buy, prices go up, right? There's a brain drain due to the costs here. Many of our own ohana, I'm sure I can list names of people who've had to move to the continent. And then, of course, there's the cultural exploitation. You can see that little picture of men try. Men try the hula. I'm so happy that one has a coconut bra on. Anyway, I said I wasn't going to do that. All right, so I won't continue that. sentence, right? So that's an example of cultural exploitation, right? Pollution in our water, fish dying, coral dying, sewage, right? 10 million people flushing the toilets, taking showers, emptying our aquifers at an alarming rate. No open spaces, right? Again, right? Low paying jobs, okay? All right, so, and if you see, I have pictures of, I don't know, some kind of thing going on in Waikiki, dead fish on the side, for sale, our homes. In the middle there is a glass of water. You ever go to a restaurant, they fill it all the way up and then they throw it all away? I drink all my water and then I turn my glass upside down and say, please don't fill it anymore. Down at the bottom, there's the stairway to heaven. This is in Haiku on the island of Oahu, yeah, where our firemen risk their lives to go save people who get stuck up at the top and scared and can't come down. You have to propel down and save them. All right. So, how do we do this? Okay. Thank you, Alani Stock Photo. Thank you, Internet, for all of these photos that I have used. Basically, for the kingdom, right, our entire infrastructure, when the kingdom comes along, it is still going to probably be inundated with hotels. So again, I'm just using the tourist industry as an example of what we could possibly do with a little bit of imagination. Okay, so a few of those high rises are going to have to come down. Okay, they're old, they're falling apart. How we'll choose which ones will come down to give way to open space will be determined later. We're not going to worry about that detail. We just know that the kingdom doesn't want these many hotels. Okay. Bringing the hotels down will support the construction industry for many years. The hotels that are remaining will not necessarily be hosting tourists. Some of them will have to be repurposed and retrofitted. So again, great for the construction industry, right? We could use these other hotels for a variety of things, a variety of businesses, okay, or economic ideas. They would be perfect, right? A few of them as A-class, #1 medical facility. Some of them could be used for low income, moderate income, and above average income for housing for locals. Just need to, reconfigure them, okay, on the inside. They could be used for business offices like some of them are. Banking institutions. How about vertical agriculture, right? How about having farming on each level? How about for schools? It's just up to us. Again, what do we want to do? Okay, and I'm just checking my time. Oh, great. I'm doing very well. Okay, but my second example was going to talk a little bit about the military complex. Okay, so two #1 drivers in Hawaii, right? At least they claim they are. Tourism and the military. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of these slides. I'm going to skip a number of them, and that's what I'm doing right now without you seeing. But what would we do? So I want you to just think a little outside the box of what we would do with all of this land that the military right now occupies. They occupy more land from a racial perspective in Hawaii than any other bona fide state in the United States, right? We're not a state, we're an illegally occupied country. And of course, the belief is that they are here because they know very well that Hawaii is an occupied independent nation, and they're here just in case they get called to duty. Why do you think, the Striker Brigade came here? Didn't make any sense that the Striker Brigade would come onto these islands. Okay, but they also take up a bunch of land. So some of that land has homes on it. Great, we have a housing shortage, so we could repurpose those homes for people who need homes, right? Some of those lands have office space and other different types of buildings used for different activities. We can use some of them. Some of them we might not need. We may want to clear out. They do take up a large portion of land. A lot of the land that they take up is polluted. So through their assistance, we will work to get rid of all of that pollution and develop that technology, like I said earlier, to possibly sell to other nations who have the same consequences of this unbridled military, even if it's not from actual warfare, but just from practicing, right? Well, most of our land is not from war. I think all of it, except for maybe Pearl Harbor, is from the military polluting it themselves, right? And they go from one area like Kaho'olawe and they pollute it, and then they say, oh, well, okay, we'll give you back Kaho'olawe. We'll be sure to also clean it up, which has not been. That promise has not been fulfilled. And then they hop over to Makua Valley and then they pollute over there. So as soon as it gets to a point where it's too polluted or the local population says, hey, we want it back, they just pick up, leave, and find another place in Hawaii to go and to pollute. So really not a good idea. But as a economic engine, we'll have our own military now, and taking the place of the American military. And one of the ideas that, and using some of their buildings as headquarters, one of the ideas that Keʻeaumoku came up with, or has discussed, which I'll give him credit for because I don't want to pretend I thought of it, but he thought it would be a really cool idea on some of this land to have a United Nations meeting place or another United Nations, and have the Hawaiian Kingdom host the United Nations. So I thought that was kind of a cool idea, and we could do that on some of this land that is now being occupied by the American military. Besides housing and the business offices and other technology hubs could be there, engineering, industrial and innovative enterprises could be located there. And we also want to take care of our kupuna, and we want to take a look at those places like Mokukapu, or what you may know as Mokapu. We want to be able to look for our kupuna iwi and care for them appropriately. And so that would be a nice result of being able to get back on these wahipana for the kingdom. Okay, so basically we do need to begin this dialogue now, okay, and doing the proper amount of homework, okay, and gaining an understanding of what ideas will be doable and thrivable. I don't know if there's a word, but I'm making it up, so that we are ready, right, when deoccupation occurs, and it will occur. So many of us have been talking about a plethora of ideas for years now. I wanted to put a call out to this group. I have not encountered a group as organized as the Aina Aloha Economic Futures Hui, who's been working on the processes and these ideas since the pandemic. And I really encourage all of you to take a look at their website. Though they do not discuss the opportunities available as an independent nation, they are addressing the necessary considerations, our value system, limited land size, aloha aina, all of those things, basically to maintain and keep our aina healthy while having a robust economy. So I do encourage all of you out there to take a look at their website. It is under Aina Aloha Economic Futures. And I was looking for their final product, which was, I think, supposed to be a paper, but it hasn't been finished yet. And so if you go to the website, then you too can take an opportunity to read through that when it does come out. It might have been there and maybe I missed it, but I do not think so. Okay, and so I want to say mahalo nui, hui hou, and I did want to thank, or basically my resources, which I just deleted while I was deleting some of the military slides, LOL. I want to credit Peter Young, Facebook, his July 10th, 2015. I think I used a picture that he had. All my pictures came from the internet. I also looked at the Royal Commission of Inquiry, which was edited by Dr. Sai, Nana Ike Kumu by Pukui Hartig and Lee, and the Hawaiian Kingdom by Kuykendall, and my former students for some of their ideas in there. So, all right, mahalo nui, and that is it for me. So I guess I'm going to close this up now and see if there are any questions.
Mahalo, Manu. One of the questions that came out was, how does the Hawaiian Kingdom develop its own stock market? Is that some kind of a question that you could try to answer?
I could try. That might be more appropriate for finance, but the short end of that would be, we do have a stock market in Hawaii. It's not the Hawaiian Kingdoms, but we do have already in place a stock market. I believe they still exist. I haven't ever done any business with them. So there is something in place for us to use as a model. How we develop that, I'm not sure, because we will just be starting out as a kingdom. I'm not really sure the details or mechanics of making a stock market, but I think it's a great idea. And I do think that it's not an idea I ever heard. So that's a big one, because I have been working on this for forever. So I thank whoever came up with that idea. And I just think we just need to go ahead and research it. I think we can do anything. So if we wanted to have a stock market here, we could do that. So that's basically my belief. And I think it's doable. I don't know how to do it. And sometimes that's better, because then you really know it's doable, right? Mahalo, Bobby.
Okay. The last number you picked, number 28, was for Bobby Cuttins, but it seems like she was not able to call in time. So can you pick another number? Can you pick another number?
Yes. You know why I chose 28, right? Okay, so I'm gonna choose 12.
12. Okay. Your presentation surely sparks my own juices into thinking about economic opportunities that may be out there once the Hawaiian Kingdom comes back and starts to enforce itself in place. So thank you, Manu, for being our presenter this morning.